Hello and welcome to HT's weekly talk show, The Interview, and our special segment, Life and Times with HT. तागड़ी को वोट दो, मुझे कृष्णा दिखता है, उसे पकड़ो, लिपस्टिक अंकल और छोरा आगे बढ़ रहा है. He grew up on all this and much more. We are talking about Abhishek Manu Singhvi, senior advocate and politician. The reason he did law was because he did not know what to do with his father's books. His father wore a sherwani because he thought that was the only way to be taken seriously in parliament. I am no Gandhi and I am unlikely to forgive and forget, says Singhvi about himself. Understandable, because he has fought a lone battle. The University of Adversity, quote unquote, taught him what he could never learn anywhere else. Yet, he counts his blessings because at the end of the day, he has had a dream run. Leaders in Aam Aadmi Party call him Sankat Mochan. To Arvind Kejriwal, he is God. And for Rahul Gandhi, perhaps a savior. Had it not been for Singhvi, Gandhi may have lost crucial years of his political life. Let us meet the man himself in this edition of our weekly talk show, The Interview. Abhishek Manu Singhvi in our special segment, Life and Times with HT. Welcome to the show, Mr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi, and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, thank you.
Let me begin with the family legacy. Politics came from your grandfather, law and politics from your father, both stalwarts, particularly your father, who was a larger-than-life figure. Do you think you have matched up? And if yes, how and where? And where have you fallen short? And let me begin with the last, fallen short.
My grandfather was the first elected Parshad of the only elected body in Jodhpur in the 30s, pre-independence. He died early and he was a leading lawyer in Jodhpur, but he couldn't practice regularly because of his health. My father was an outstanding person, multifaceted in terms of a polymath, a interfaith Sanskrit scholar who could converse in Sanskrit. His Hindi oratory was of the match of Vajpayee and Prakash Veer Shastri. He was a poet, of course, a top lawyer, a four-time president of the Supreme Court Bar, and India's High Commissioner for the longest serving after Krishna, and many, many more things. So the question of even wanting to match with him doesn't arise. His multifacetedness never ceased to amaze me. He could, sit and compose a poetry while the other side was arguing in court, and then get up and give a rejoinder in the middle of the hearing. He invented the words Lokpal and Lokayukt. He invented them. Where in 62, as a young 30-year-old member of parliament, Nehru came up to him and said, to what zoo does this belong? Because you constantly use the word ombudsman. You must indigenize it. So ombudsman became Lokpal and Lokayukt. It was his invention. It's strange. I have had a inner struggle to want to compete with him.
Compete?
Yes, clearly.
Explain that to me.
In terms of excelling, in terms of not being, this is all internal. He never kind of berated me or pushed me or said that, you have to. Nobody in my family did. But I was an outstanding student, better than him in many ways because I topped India in the school. I topped all my sections in most years. But his versatility can't be emulated and his diversity can't be. I'm more organized, so I'm better than him in that. He was the typical creative person, less organized. I have focused more on practice and 3 other areas, which is sufficiently multitasking for me because they are very jealous mistresses. Academia, public life, now I'm parliamentarian for 20 years, media and law. I think this is more than I can hold. That internal struggle was there always, that look, I can't be ashamed to him, I can't be much less. So that made me do, for example, PhD. There was a very interesting et tu Brutus moment when after doing a lot of studies and doing well in Cambridge, I embarked on a PhD. So after 1.5 years, of all people, 2 years, my father turns around and says, look, why are you wasting time in all this? Come back to law practice. So I actually said et tu Brutus because he had done LLM Harvard in 54. He had done PhD Cornell in 55. He had been in the staff of Berkeley in the 56 before he came back in 57. These are facets of life, but I'm proud that he had so much multifaceted. I'm a much less multifaceted character, but I'm good at what I set my mind to, and I work hard at it. I mean, I'm called a multitasker. You can imagine what he would be called.
Did your father ever tell you where you need to fill the gap? Did he ever tell you, okay, son, this is what you need to improve on?
Interestingly, never.
So poetry and Sanskrit, how much of that did you take from him?
Sanskrit, zero, because Sanskrit is something you have to learn early on. Poetry, I'm not a poet. He was a poet, a Hindi poet especially. But I like poetry. I have a wife who has a very great interest in Urdu Shairi. So I have a mix of some Urdu Shairi and some poetry. And even Hindi, Dinkar and people like that are famous. But I'm a less than a dilettante in that area.
Your father was an MP, a High Commissioner, and saw India change 4 Prime Ministers, Chandrasekhar, Vajpayee, Mr. Gujral and Mr. Devegowda. What were the political stories you grew up on?
And 3 British Prime Ministers, Thatcher, Major and Blair. So he went through a remarkable period. I actually told him that I have had a longer association with England than he ever had because he did his studies in US. He always did that extra bit. He reached out to the Indian community. He advanced cultural and economic diplomacy to heights. And of course, he did the normal diplomatic things, including the renewal of the lease of the house, which expired during his time. It's a fantastic house on Kensington Park Street. And that would have gone out. But for ultimately, when the British tried to be very unreasonable about extending the lease in terms of saying you pay some 12 million or 50 million pounds, he advised the government of India to seek a similar sum of money for 2 Rajaji Marg, where the British High Commissioner stays. And within a few months, it was settled.
In the Indian context, what were the political stories you grew up on?
I was 3.5 years old when we shifted to Delhi because he became a young Lok Sabha member. So we used to be in somewhat harsh economic circumstances. So we used to live in a flat over a cinema hall at Jodhpur.
I thought you were born with a silver spoon.
That's what most people think. I lived the later part of my life with a silver spoon, but I was certainly not born with it because my grandfather died young. My father had no backup and money, but he earned well and he became a very successful lawyer. So I think 70s onwards, there was a belated silver spoon, or at least a good metal spoon. I don't know whether it's silver or not. But certainly from my 59 birth till 70, we were in stringent circumstances. My father was a serious parliamentarian from 62 to 67. When he left Parliament in 67, I know he told us informally that the dire bank balance would be less than 50,000 because he had not practiced. He became top of the line by 70. It didn't take long for him. But it was certainly not a silver spoon.
And yet you threw utensils from your balcony.
That was, of course, a childhood prank. That is literally like pre-3 years old. And also because, I was the sole male child. So I always joke and say that it's a miracle that I haven't been spoilt bad. This was a very minor thing.
Spoiled bad? Everyone in the family treated you like God.
They did. My grandmother actually thought, and it's very common in Indian households,
that you were an incarnation.
Incarnation within 2 years of the death of her husband, whom I never saw, my grandfather. In front of her, I could do no wrong. My mother had to take me to a washroom, lock it and say, you better sit down and do your homework. If she said it in front of my grandmother, there'd be hell to pay. My unmarried bhua would be told to basically treat me like a divine thing. There was a clear discrimination between me and my first cousins, who who were girls. 7 girls and 1 boy. So that is all given. So
How much of that did you carry with you in later life?
I said I'm a completely hardworking, industrious, non-spoiled guy. That's a miracle. I mean, I joke with my family. I said, you restrained in nothing in spoiling me. But I didn't get spoiled because I was a very good student. Of course, I had a sense of ego in that for these many years having been spoiled, if anybody did something nice or kind, special to some other cousin, I would take it as a birthright. It should come first to me.
Coming back to the original question of vis-a-vis Indian prime ministers, and since your father worked with 5 of them, what were the political stories you heard?
One political story he told me was about him, about the magnanimity and the large-heartedness of Nehru. As a student, he worshipped Nehru. He became his colleague in Lok Sabha in 62 when he was 30 and Nehru was peak of his career. The blue-eyed boy of Nehru was Kero.
Pratap Singh Kero?
Pratap Singh Kero was, in his eyes, he could do no wrong. Much more than all the later Bansilals and all who came and became close to Mrs. Gandhi. So there was a huge scam, as you know, the Kero scam, involving a doctor also called Dr. Pratap Singh. This guy's name was Chief Minister Pratap Singh Kero. That guy's name was Pratap Singh. It had some leaked recordings, etc., etc. Very messy thing. So question was raised in Parliament, and my father gave a fiery speech, including seeking a commission of inquiry. Nehru replied in the heat of the debate saying, Parliament will not appoint a commission merely because a member of Parliament says so. So in the heat of the debate, my father also got up and said, Parliament will not abdicate its responsibility merely because the Prime Minister says so. That evening, for a 30-year-old unknown, Nehru telephoned him. I mean, this is the point to make, not the merits, not Kero. And he said, young man, I've admired your speeches a lot. You are highly educated and you speak a lot of sense. I'm sorry I lost my temper. But I think you have a point. Pratap Singh also has a point. I'm going to ask him to talk to you and explain his point of view. This is the magnanimity. Those were a generation of people who knew how to win hearts. He may not have meant it, but the warmth. Same thing with Bhairav Singh Shekhawat. The magnanimity, largeness of heart and warmth is something I miss because I believe real politics in a democracy, unlike Pakistan, unlike Bangladesh, unlike so many of our neighbors, is this large-heartedness. And I have no hesitation in saying, unfortunately, it's been the biggest casualty after 2014.
Without getting into names, some bitter anecdotes, politics, with your father, later with you?
Well, many. I mean, my father was a very fulfilled man, so he didn't show it. But the stickers of that year in which Abdul Kalam became president will show that till the afternoon of Saturday, Vajpayee had declared my father as the presidential candidate. At that point, Pramod Mahajan, who used to be a very dominating personality, he was not against my father, but he wanted to be the one who was the kingmaker. So he then said, look, we'll keep this on hold. The whole afternoon the ticker ran. LM Singhvi proposed by. In the evening he said, let's keep this on hold, but let's also think as to who's the biggest supporter of this government, Chandrababu Naidu. The closest person to Chandrababu Naidu and Mulayam Singh was APJ Abdul Kalam, which people forget, though a Tamilian spent his entire working life in Andhra. So he said that these two big parties will support. So he flew down on Saturday and Sunday he finalized that. And that's one. This same thing was repeated when the vice president thing came. This time Advani ji, was a good friend of my father, otherwise said that I put my foot down because this has to be a true blue-blooded BJP person. It can't be Dr. LM Singhvi. So both the times you see the record, and that is deep disappointment. I would feel actually depressed. My father took it in his stride and didn't allow it to, but he, I'm sure, internally felt disappointed. There used to be Amar Singh, a good friend, who carried on a tirade for a few days, a few weeks in press conferences, wherever he would want to say against the Congress, because I was become by then a prominent Congress spokesperson, although a young one and not in Parliament. So just before I got into Parliament in 2006, there were, whenever Congress and Amar Singh fought, which was quite often, Amar Singh would go on to television and say, ये देखिए क्या मजाक है, दोनों सिंघवीज एक घर में रहते हैं, सुबह नाश्ता साथ करते हैं और फिर दोनों विभिन्न दिशाओं पे निकल जाते हैं, एक कांग्रेस की तरफ से, एक बीजेपी की तरफ से. Nobody took it seriously because my father transcended party lines and I was officially in the Congress. One more disappointment of my own. By 2009, almost everybody expected me to be in the Council of Ministers. And there used to be genuine queries, jibes, etc.
And people calling you and saying, इस बार तो पक्का है.
No, but there were people who actually assumed कि पक्का है, and I will share with you, I can't go into too much detail. Twice, the Prime Minister in front of others announced that we couldn't take you this time because this person was appointed because he's from this state and we had to give prominence to this state. Twice happened, both times for the law ministry. But I did inside feel a disappointment, not because actually I believe I might have been miserable then because my practice was roaring up and up. But I felt a little bad because I was doing so much. And then I used to start joke about it, saying that it's better to be an eligible non-appointee than to be ineligible appointee.
But you know, you emulated your father, you actually worshipped him. How's it that when it came to politics, you joined a party different from his?
As far as this joining two parties is concerned, we've both been actually very independent all along. When my father left the country in 91, I was effectively only 4 years in law practice. So I actually had a conversation with him. I said, look, this is my contemporary Mr. So-and-so, I won't name him, has got this godfather. The 4 top people had godfathers at that time. So you are going away. And he said a very interesting, perceptive thing. He said, don't feel insecure. I remember that sentence all the time. According to me, your practice should exponentially rise after I go and not because I am here. And I said, this is very convenient for you to say because, you know, you are going. So it's a valid excuse for you. You don't believe it. From 91 Kumkum, each year my practice, each year over the previous, doubled and trebled. Now, I was independent. There was, don't forget, I didn't join politics till 2001. By the time I got active, from then it had nothing to do with my father. I was pushed into politics and really supported by Madhav Sindhya from the late 90s till he died.
Yes, but different parties?
Yes, because that is a natural course of evolution. Madhav Sindhya came to our house in 83, 84 to consult my father on something. And then we had a remarkable connect. He was 15 years younger than my father. I was 15 years younger than him. And after that, he asked me to join him, talk to him, we talked.
But tell me about the different parties. Your father, BJP, you, Congress.
I got closer to Madhav Sindhya. And then I got into his circle. Then he made in the 90s a think tank, which was internal to him, but fed in inputs to the Congress.
Did you ask your father?
Not at all.
Was your father upset?
Not at all. We're not that kind of basically we're a professional family. We're an educated family. And, you know, I mean, he would like his son to do well, but he never imposed these choices. I had traveled far in about 15 years in the company of all the people who Madhav Sindhya introduced me to. And they were largely Congress people. But who knows, had the BJP offered me something, at that time I was not in active politics, I might have taken it. The first people to offer me something, that was a relatively minor thing. Sonia ji once out of the blue telephoned me 1 year after his death. I'm putting on the media committee. Not she, I mean her person telephoned.
So if BJP had asked you, you would have...
Who knows at that time? That time I was not active in politics. I didn't have that much of analysis about ideology, character, temperament, etc., etc. But that's how it started. It happened in a natural course because I was associated with Congress causes, Congress people, etc., etc. But my father could have stopped it. He's not that kind of a person.
But many of your critics would see it as very convenient, both parties at home, BJP, Congress, so keep both happy.
Actually, it's the opposite way now. Technically, I should never be interested in anything important in Congress because I'm leaking everything through my father to the BJP. And vice versa for that matter. There are always, of course, malicious, doubtful people. But nobody treated me or my father as that kind of a person. We were counsel, my father in a more major way, but later me, simultaneously for the most famous political feud of that time, Arjun Singh versus Madhav Sindhya.
That's right.
The common advocates for both, initially my father and then me. I was doing Madhav Sindhya's case when I was doing Churat also. And to the credit, I didn't have this conversation with Arjun Singh. But with Madhav Sindhya, much later, I had a conversation. And I said I was very pleasantly surprised that he never once asked me. And that you continued to have me in your matter and trust me. I think this whole approach is because today we are in what I call a very sankeen vatavaran. The essence of democracy is the Nehru model and the Vajpayee model.
Going down memory lane to your childhood, Tagdi ko vote do. Your initiation into politics was when you were barely 3 and you never even understood these slogans. So tell me about this.
That is hardly politics. That is just kind of putting a child on his shoulder in 1962, 3.5 years old. Used to have megaphones at that time and using it to get some votes. Takdi is the Rajasthani word for scales of justice, which was my father's symbol. So that is a ambience of public life, but not really. But then I lived from 62 onwards in Delhi with my father in parliament. So the smells, sounds, visitors, talk was always around. You ultimately imbibe it in various forms. So public life was there.
Just explain Tagri to me.
Takri ko vote though was just a means of getting votes and the procession would start. My father won that election at a budget of a remarkable 15,000 rupees. The entire youth idealism was there. And I was fully aware. I remember the scenes very well. But it didn't interest me in politics. It was just that I was helping out my father. And in a childish tone, I had to ask for votes. Takri ko vote though. Maybe it actually got him some sympathy votes. But I was his chief election agent in 1989. That's the more important one. In Rajasthan, Lok Sabha constituencies are very large geographically and very sparse population-wise. So like there are thousands of kilometers to be covered. And I learnt more politics there than ever before. The dirt of it, the goings-on, the good of it.
You know, it was at the age of 4 that you learned that God exists. Catch him, I can see Krishna, you screamed as you recovered from a near-death experience.
Retrospectively, I am now quite convinced. It could easily be hallucination. I'm a very rational being. It could be a hallucination. But remember, I was the only male child. I fell critically ill with some urinary infection. And in Jodhpur in those days, at the end of the day, medical facilities were only that much. We were not very well off. But for whatever reason, I remember this scene distinctly. Some things remain in a picture's frame in your mind. Here I was in this small room under a whirring fan till my fever 105, 104. My bhua, my mother and my dadi all doing hand fans on me, putting baraf. They were all praying. I saw in that moment, whether by the power of their prayers or my blessing, a clear form of Krishna for a full 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And that darkish form, not the very fair one, the Samla. And he just stood and smiled. And I felt a lot of surge of confidence. And
you recovered.
Recovered, of course, after a day. But it was that moment which gave me a connect, which I've never forgotten. And I've forgotten most things of that age.
Has that happened later in life?
Unfortunately not, sadly not. And I believe in God as an abstract being, not in a Jain God or a Hindu God or this God, but as an abstract being.
Tell me about Lipstick Uncle, who whisked away your aunt to the US.
My elder Bhua was married by then. The youngest one was unmarried. She was like a second mother to me. And we had this very eligible, extremely handsome young man called Narpak Bhandari from our community, which is Oshwal Jains. He had a particular feature, very sharp nose, very fair, which in those days mattered more, but in particular very thin lips with a reddish tinge. So it just happened that the first time I saw him, I said, Lipstick Uncle. That name stuck and everybody till the end, till he took away my bhua, called him that.
And you never forgave him?
Well, for a long time, yes. But then, of course, we realized that she has to be married.
And is he still Lipstick Uncle?
Well, yes, his lips are as thin. They may not be as red, but it's still as thin.
In fact, you were only Manu till you were 14 and Abhishek was added later.
My grandmother, who was by then a widow, was reading the Manu Smriti when my mother was pregnant. So she decided कि भाई ये जो बच्चा होगा, अगर लड़का हुआ तो there was no way of knowing, तो Manu देंगे नाम इसको. Manu was not a pejorative term then. He was considered a classicist, a person who had to be interpreted contextually. So I was named Manu. But my parents were never happy with that. They didn't want to displease my grandmom. So as time went on, my parents were a very, very Sahityik couple. Both were, one was super Sahityik, Sanskrit and Hindi. My mother was a Hindi fanatic. My mother said, look, the name should be some Sahityik name. I told Amitabh Bachchan once that I am Abhishek 25 years before you found this name. So Abhishek was not a popular name that time. It was slightly known in Bengal and limited outside of Thaini. So Abhishek, after 10 years I was named, also because it rhymed with my sister Abhilasha. But it remained for 15 years, I think. I don't know when, 14 or 15, when Manu changed to Abhishek. But Manu was retained as a middle name. So it became Abhishek Manu Singhvi.
Take me through the Nandita Haksar episode when she asked you to change your name.
In Cambridge years, doing my undergraduate in law and then my post-studies and my PhD, I got this very irrational, sudden fascination. The best area of law to practice is excise. So I asked my father, who's the best in Delhi in excise? So as soon as I finished my studies, I joined the numero uno in that subject, Ravindra Narayan. First day I entered their office, I found a plump lady sitting there. She looked at me and after 5 minutes, she gave a big grunt. She said, you must be Abhishek Manu Singhvi. You must change your middle name immediately. She says, don't you know that Manu was the chap who said a woman is always dependent on a man? This is ridiculous, it's male chauvinist. And to give a name like that reeks of male chauvinism. You must change it immediately. That was when I realized that Manu has is a lawgiver, a noble person.
So Nandita Haksar was wrong.
I believe personally that you have to judge people historically and contextually. You have to have a larger picture.
Your father was always dressed in a sherwani and felt that to be taken seriously, one should wear a sherwani in parliament. What is your take? And given that you follow his footsteps, why not the sherwani and this very fancy shirt?
Opposite. It all depends on the era you live in. My father lived in an era where youth was much less accepted in India. If you were young, you were inexperienced and an upstart. So it was a put-on act. He was very learned, he was a great orator, but he just won't be taken seriously, he thought. I don't think that's entirely true. Yes, the fact that I prematurely balded, even more accelerated than my father, gave me a good wizened appearance in court, where again, age is a desirable virtue for many decades. Now again, not so much, but in the old days. And youth and inexperience, new entrant, is held against you. So these are all things which happen with time. You go into 70s, 80s.
Pitch that against Rahul Gandhi wearing a t-shirt to parliament, which is really not done.
He's been consistent. Rahul Gandhi has always practiced spontaneity. You see it in anything, how he speaks, what he speaks, when he speaks, how he meets, how he
hugs Modi.
Be straightforwardness.
You avoided how he hugs Modi.
No, so therefore that's also spontaneity. He felt, he may have been wrong, he may have been right, is a debatable point.
What do you think?
He felt about it. He was trying to convey a message that there is a lot of anger and a lot of vendetta out there. Let's just test that by saying that, look, you can be opposite sides of the spectrum and yet be friends. Well, that was his particular way of taking it. Why should you today, Zelensky, how the hell can Trump tell Zelensky what to wear? Rahul Gandhi has a certain connect with the youth. So I think there is absolutely nothing about a dress which should. Why should you be always hypocritical in wearing a kurta pajama, but 24/7 wear kurta pajama and in your home dance around in t-shirts and shorts?
You know, Parliament does have a dress code. It does have a certain etiquette which one would follow.
Fortunately, no. No uniform, no dress code. You have
a code. May not be a uniform, but a code.
This is Kumkum, a subjective imposition. Why is a code decided by you imposed on me? Only Parliament can have a code. Luckily, it doesn't. People will come with headgear. There are members now, I'm talking of Now House, who come with a particular headgear, which you might find very weird. So I think it is clearly a subjective view of mine that your t-shirt doesn't suit the ethos of Parliament.
While on studying law, it was less law and more not knowing what to do with your father's books that you took up law as a profession.
Nobody pushed me to law. My father never said, your grandfather is a lawyer, I am a lawyer, you should do law.
But your mother's sentence stuck.
No, what happened was that these are things always on the smells, sounds, impressions, images, people talk. You grow up 20 years with that. That sticks somewhere. It's also the best way of going into something. In my case, the second thing was that I did in my mind explore 3 or 4 alternatives, found them totally not attractive in my mind. Medicine, not possible. Engineering, no great person in science. Straight away jump into something else. In a service job, I could never, I was a bit too independent. So law became by a process of elimination, not by a process of desire. That was number 2. And number 3, my mother always, even earlier, pushing that, look, the tradition of the family is there. You've got 2 generations. And above all these books scattered around, what will happen to them? Now, that's an unbeatable argument.
About your father, it was said, Kal ka chora aage badh raha hai. How much of this did you face in both your legal and political life?
I have been a young achiever. In the profession, being a senior advocate at 34 and an ASG at 37 is not taken too kindly. People mistake you. People start imagining things about you. Then there is a second category, is downright jealous. So this is the story of my life. I've had it right through. My father has had it right through. And a time comes which came in my 40s when I stopped thinking of it, because, you know, in a scenario where I have not hit you in the stomach, you have not hit me, our paths have not crossed, but you are just jealous because I am doing well. There is no answer to it. Life is also an equalizer. अगर मैं पहले आगे निकल गया तो बाद में वो पेस नहीं रहती है कभी भी. बाद में निकल गया तो पहले नहीं रहती. कहीं ना कहीं इक्वलाइज होता है. Nobody progresses the same pace all your life.
We've spoken about your father, whose influence on you has been very great. What about Mr. Madhavrao Scindia, who was yet another person who influenced you?
There was something uncanny about how we got along.
You spoke about a chemistry which you shared.
That's right. It was literally some kind of chemistry, and the chemistry was also not because of a past liaison of the families. We just hit off, and he is a very emotional, very trusting person. Also Piscean. Anyway, in the 90s, he formed this small group to give input advice. He was considered by then, although he hated for us to say it publicly, to joke and pull his leg. He was de facto number 2 by then. We give a lot of advice. He used to sit in his inside drawing room and have a total free and frank, and he's rely on that in his own way, conveyed to the relevant quarters of the Congress. It was with the Congress High Command's blessings that the group was there, but never formally in the Congress. In 97, because of the association, he clearly pushed my case for ASG-ship. In fact, I left the JMM case. All these so-called, that time, gang of 4 used to come regularly. Shibu Soren, the late lamented, Suraj, Mandal, Marandi used to come to my office. I left the case because I said that as an ASG, which I'm about to be appointed, I should not be seen doing these cases. There was this very strange emotional connect. He had more friends and more friends, but he never left that bond.
We stop here because to encapsulate Abhishek Manu Singhvi's eventful life in one segment is a near impossibility. So watch out for the next part of this program in our next edition, Life and Times with HT.